Good evening and welcome into another edition of Crunch Time Nightly here on ASTV Productions. My name is Michael Wags, Wagon Connect, alongside my partner in crime tonight, Joe Hamilton. Scott Tobin is on location at Busch Stadium as the Cardinals and Nationals are playing right now. A 4-2 Nationals lead going into the bottom of the seventh. We'll get into baseball here in just a little bit. But first, Joe, it was trade deadline day in the NHL, and it's almost like Christmas for us hockey fans. What was your enjoyment today outside of the fact that it was trade deadline day? Did you enjoy the nice weather here in St. Louis, or were you just glued to your TV watching stuff all day?
I was glued to my TV watching stuff all day, and the cool part is I like watching the Canadian coverage. So the NHL Network played from like 12 to 2. They played the Sportsnet, I guess, trade tracker. And I got to, hear a Canadian point of view in terms of that. It's really amazing. And you got to wonder, with some of these guys being traded to teams that are closer nearby, that quarantine doesn't come into effect. I mean, I've seen that with a couple trades here today.
Well, yeah, and I'm very interested in the fact that you're getting the Canadian perspective. I mean, the Canadian perspective is basically who the Maple Leafs traded for and why the trades that didn't happen for the Maple Leafs are going to affect them. That's got to be what it is, right? It was all about Toronto, right?
No, it's not all about Toronto. I mean, yes, they talk more about the Canadian teams, but you have a lot of American coverage too when it comes to teams getting players. It's hockey is a Canadian sport, so they're going to talk about the whole league. So I'm happy that I got to see that, because I prefer the Canadian coverage in terms of Sportsnet and TSN, to be honest with you.
Well, I just have a quick question for you though. If it's Canadians, if it's a Canada sport, and you want all Canadian coverage, when was the last time a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup?
I think I wasn't born yet.
No, you weren't. So pretty much America's dominated, has it? Has it not?
It has. But this
it was with Canadian players. So splitting hairs there.
Well, I know, Wags, but since you went there, Jeff Carter made that center core in Toronto, made it that much better. Did you like that trade from a Toronto point of view?
Oh, Jeff Carter didn't go to Toronto, so no, I don't like that.
Not Jeff Carter.
Jeff Carter went to Pittsburgh, and he's basically getting one more shot at a Stanley Cup with the Penguins. I think that's a great move by Pittsburgh. I think it is. Yeah. But once again, I think it's a great move by the Penguins. They needed another, veteran presence in there. It also signifies to me that a guy like Evgeny Malkin is probably not coming back anytime soon, and even if he is, they're not going to expect much out of him. So I really did like that. Now, that move happened last night, just like the Taylor Hall move happened last night as well. It was kind of one of those late-night deals that got done right around 11:30 our time, which would be even later on the East Coast, which is crazy. And Taylor Hall does go to Boston from Buffalo. And that was weird because, you look at the last couple of trades involving Taylor Hall, and it's, good player for good player, then a good prospect and a bunch of picks for a good player. And now you get this one where he's traded with somebody else and you get a player and a pick, and it's not even a first round pick. I know that he had a full no movement clause, and basically he was making sure that he went to Boston no matter what. That was the only place he was going to go. But still, the return that Buffalo got for him, it just shows you that they just have no idea what they're doing in Buffalo.
Yeah, they have no idea. We were going into this deadline thinking, oh, Taylor Hall, you're going to get top dollar. Even though he has been a cancer in a lot of people's minds, he's still a good player. So, Wags, going into this, I thought maybe you'd have to get maybe a prospect, maybe a player that's ready now, and a first-round pick and a second-round pick. What was your, thought process going into this? What did you think it was going to take to land Taylor Hall?
Well, if you're talking about what a team should have asked for, yeah, you're probably right in line with that. And, a high-end prospect, a first and a second, possibly, maybe a conditional pick instead of a second. But when you look at underneath the surface of it all, he had all the power. He wasn't going to go anywhere except Boston. So Buffalo had to basically take whatever Boston offered to them because they have no position of control on that. They can't just sit there and say, oh, well, you know what? We're not going to trade him unless we get this. X team, Y team, Z team, you guys give us your offers and we'll pitch you against each other. No, that's not what it was at all. It was Taylor Hall wanted to go to Boston. Boston was like, yeah, I mean, we'll take you, but at our price, and this is the price that we are going to make. And Buffalo had to sit there and make the decision. Okay, do you continue to sit there and let Taylor Hall score two goals in 36 plus games? Or do you get at least something for him because you know you're losing him after the season?
Yeah, I'd get something for him, and I'm not really sure what the thought process is from Buffalo, but then again, they got it right with one franchise, the same ownership group, mind you, but yet they can't do it with the Sabres. I just don't quite understand it, Wags. Can you kind of help me understand that portion of it? Because
we've
at the Bills.
We've talked about this in the past a couple of different times. Which league makes more money, the NFL or the NHL?
The NFL, but don't you want you make money?
You're making money hand over fist with Buffalo. You're essentially printing money with the Bills. You could do whatever the hell you want with the Sabres. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, you're essentially cutting as much cost as you possibly can with Buffalo to where you're not actually losing a lot of money. You're really just kind of trying to break even with the Sabres. And then you're hoping that your development process works out. And if it does, then, maybe the team starts winning with some younger, cheaper guys. And if that's the case, at that point, maybe you go out there and spend some money and move up. The Bills weren't profitable right off the bat. How long have the Pegulas owned the Buffalo Bills? And how long have they been a successful franchise?
Yeah, they talked about during the playoff run last year, the last time the Bills went as far as the championship game in the AFC. And yeah, it's been a while. So it's just, you get one thing right. And I feel like, they have so much talent over there in Buffalo that the Buffalo Sabres do. That's why I'm like, how are they this bad? I don't understand it. Like, I don't know. It's sad times in Buffalo every single year. And I feel bad for that fan base.
Well, that's the thing, though. The fan base hasn't really risen up and done anything about it. They're still occasionally going to games. They're still supporting the team. But you're right in a sense. They've had some talent there. I mean, they've had Ryan O'Reilly. They've got Jack Eichel. They brought Taylor Hall in. They've had other talented players there. It's just they don't have the right system in place. They don't have the right coach in place. They don't even have the right mindset in place. And it's because there's no focus on it. Like I said, because they don't have to be making money off of it, they're not really going to invest in it. Now, when they bought the team, they did a lot. They re-upped and redesigned everything at the practice facilities and all that stuff. And they really made a big push for them to be good. And really, when they weren't good the first couple of years, it was kind of like, okay, well, we did what we could. Now we're just going to kind of tread water and really try to break even so that we're not losing money, but we're not going to really focus on this team. And they've done a decent job of drafting. I mean, you got to forget Casey Middlestead's there as well. And you haven't really heard his name very much at all. So you have to almost look a little bit deeper and go, what's their developmental process like? What is their minor league system like? What is their coaching philosophy? What does all of that entail? And if they want to decide to be better, then they have to dig deep and find out, okay, we got to start at the top, work from the GM down. Now, they did get rid of their GM, Botterill, who's now over in Seattle as the assistant. That's who the Blues kind of fleeced for Ryan O'Reilly. Maybe they're at a point now where they've got a GM in there that's not kind of like a puppet of the owners and kind of makes the decisions that'll actually improve the team. I don't think that's the case. I think you really have to start there. Get a GM that's really going to make a difference. Hire a coach that has a system that's proven to win. And then build up on the developmental side and actually give these guys a chance to be better. Because like you said, they've had a lot of high draft picks, a lot of good talent, and yet they just can't seem to get anything put together. And it's top to bottom. The owners have to be invested. The GM has to have a mindset and a philosophy, and the coach has to have a system that envisions what the players can do. And until they get all of that, I don't see Buffalo really being successful, but that's just the way I see it. And it's Buffalo. I mean, who wants to play hockey in Buffalo in the dead of winter?
You got a good point there. I mean, hell, You hear about guys like Ristolainen and Dahlin. Hopefully they can get it right there, because I always thought of Buffalo, at least when I was a younger kid, as being a really good team. So hopefully some good things are coming from Buffalo, but not anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't think so at all. I don't think so at all. Some of the other moves, you talked about the Washington Capitals. They get Anthony Mantha from the Detroit Red Wings. They also picked up Michael Rothel from the Philadelphia Flyers as well. And they gave up Jacob Verana, Richard Panik, and a couple of picks for Mantha. Yeah, I think I'm along the same lines as you. I don't think that was a very good trade in a sense. I mean, I think they definitely gave up too much for Mantha. He's not a Taylor Hall. He's got deficiencies. I don't actually know if he's going to improve Washington's chances this year. And that's the thing, that when you make these kinds of trades, you want to improve your chances. Look what the Jets did by getting Jordy Benn. You know, he's not a flashy all-world defender, but he definitely shores up that questionable defense that we were talking about last week, really. Nashville, Eric Goodbrunson, another D to shore up on their back line as well. So teams that made these moves, Sam Bennett goes to Florida. All those moves addressed a need, but the Capitals, I don't think they addressed a need in a sense. They went after the flashy guy, and maybe it works out for them, but I don't see it working for them, and that's a shame, because I really, really like Washington, and I really hope they get a chance to go to another Stanley Cup.
Yeah, and they got to do it soon, though, Wags, because they're getting older. Oshie's getting older. Backstrom's getting older. Ovechkin's getting older. I mean, they don't necessarily have a young core in place to replace those guys. So if it were me, in the next 2 years, they got to go to a cup final. They have to.
Well, I mean, Ovi is chasing the goal record, so I think they've got at least a passing chance of having some sort of success while he's there. A couple other moves that went down today. The Kings extended Alex Iafallo. He was a guy that was on the trading block. That give him a 4-year, $4 million average annual value contract. Were you a little surprised that they ended up keeping Iafallo there, or is he just one of those building pieces that they really, really need because they may lose some of these other guys? I mean, obviously they traded Jeff Carter.
Yeah, you need guys like this. Iafallo's been a good player there. He's going to continue to be a good player there. So good on the LA Kings. I think they're doing it right, Luc Robitaille and his team. And who better to run a franchise than your legend? I mean, Luc Robitaille is a legend in LA.
I'd argue that Steve Yzerman and, surprisingly, Joe Sakic are better at what they've been doing. But Luc Robitaille is right there as well. Some of the games in action tonight, the Ottawa Senators beat the Winnipeg Jets tonight 4-2. Winnipeg is chasing Toronto for first place in the Northern Division. Montreal, a 4-2 winner over Toronto. So the Jets had a chance to creep up a little bit closer to the Leafs, but they were unable to. So the Leafs stay at 59 points and the Jets sit at 53. The Chicago Blackhawks beat the Columbus Blue Jackets 4-3 in overtime. Detroit takes care of Carolina 3-1. Carolina was looking to take sole possession of the Central Division. Currently at the start of the second period, and this is a big one for the St. Louis Blues, Colorado leads Arizona 1-0 after one period. This is a game you're going to have to bear watching, because right now the Coyotes sit just 1 point behind the Blues for that fourth spot. And the Blues game tonight against Minnesota was postponed due to unrest up in Minnesota. The Twins and Timberwolves games were also postponed as well. So the Blues are definitely watching this game to see if Colorado can hang on and defeat Arizona. And you never want to root for Colorado, but in this instance, I think it's allowed.
Okay. This is a hard question, I guarantee you, Wag. So, who would you rather root for, Colorado or Vegas? Because we had to root for Vegas yesterday against the same Coyotes team.
It's whoever's playing Arizona. That's the biggest thing. I mean, that really is what it comes down to. Whoever's playing Arizona right now is who I'm rooting for.
Okay, what hurts you more, rooting for Vegas or rooting for Colorado? I mean, I know you have to do it, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't hurt me either way. As long as Arizona loses, it's not like you're looking at it and saying, okay, the Blues are chasing Colorado for the top spot. They're 2 points behind of Colorado, but Arizona's behind them for the third spot. In that instance, I would almost say, yeah, I'm probably rooting for Arizona. But because this is for our playoff lives and it doesn't really matter because Colorado and Vegas are so far ahead of us. It doesn't matter who you root for. It doesn't matter if it hurts to root for either one of them, because you just really want Arizona to lose because you really want to make sure you stay in the playoffs. So that game, we'll kind of keep an eye on that as we go throughout the show today. Coming up next here on Crunch Time, we're going to take a quick break and come back and talk Major League Baseball. So make sure you stick around for that here on Crunch Time on ASTV Productions. And we're back here on Crunch Time on ASTV Productions. Wags and Joe breaking down the day in sports. Just got done talking about the NHL trade deadline. Now let's move over to Major League Baseball. We had 3 games postponed tonight, 2 of them due to weather, 1 of them due to the situation in Minnesota. Red Sox and Twins postponed for a later date. You've got the Mariners and Orioles rained out, as well as the Phillies and Mets. It looks like the Mariners and Orioles are going to play a doubleheader tomorrow. Phillies Mets postponed after rainout miscue on Sunday. It's kind of been a little bit of a mess for the Mets and Phillies, even so much. You guys, that play with Philadelphia and Atlanta last night, I'm at a loss for words, to be honest with you, man. When you watch that replay, the bang-bangness of that, I can understand why the ump would have called him safe, because if you're just looking at it in real time, it looks like he very possibly could have gotten his foot on the plate before the tag got to him. But then you see the replay, and the whole impetus of replay is to catch those instances where a bang-bang play is so close and video evidence says and shows you that the other call is correct, not the one made on the field.
Yep.
At no point did I see that player's toe, foot, ankle, anything touch home plate, and yet they still called him safe. I mean, was it just the fact that the views that they have were just not indisputable enough? Because if that's the case, why are they not getting the views that we got on TV? And if they did get those views, why did they make that call?
I was watching a John Boy media breakdown. I'm sure you've seen John Boy a couple times, and he had all of these views that showed me clearly that no part of his cleat touched the plate. And this isn't the first time that Atlanta's been screwed by the umpires. I mean, this was a flat-out botch. Does this tell you, Wags, that it tells me for sure, but does it tell you that there are flaws in the replay system?
It just depends on where the flaw actually came down. I mean, because if it's in New York, then it's one story. If it's on the field in Atlanta or Philadelphia or wherever, that's a whole different story. But from my understanding is that it's the people in Atlanta that are watching, or not Atlanta, in New York that are watching this. So if there's an issue there, who is actually watching these plays in New York? Is it current or former umpires? Are there any former players involved? Are they executives? I mean, what are the connections that these guys have in New York that are actually watching the replay? Because that also might play into it as well. I'm not sitting there saying there's any collusion or cheating or gambling or anything like that, but if there aren't like a collective, like a 3-man system, a former player, a former ump, and a Major League Baseball executive, if that's not the combination of guys watching that play, then there's something a little bit off. And I think replay has been fine, but the Cardinals kind of got a little bit of a miscue off a replay the other day as well. When the ball went off of Justin Williams in foul territory, they couldn't review it because it wasn't a reviewable play. I think there are a lot of bugs that still need to be worked out in the replay system if they're going to continue to use it. I'm of the mindset that, honestly, replay, I'm okay with it not being a part of baseball, but if it is a part of baseball, I want them to get it right and be able to use it in the right situations. I know balls and strikes are not something that we want called by replay. We want umpires to call it, although there are a few of us that would like robot umpires to call it because apparently that's more accurate. I don't know. But if we're going to do replay, it's got to be consistent. It's got to be used for plays that it needs to be used for, and it needs to be used and called correctly.
Yeah, and good on the runner, good on Alec Boehm at third base to test Ozuna's arm. I was reading a tweet earlier that said that Ozuna, that throw to the plate was only 77 miles an hour. So good on Alec Boehm there.
Still beat the runner to the plate.
Exactly. So, which means I don't think Boehm isn't that quick, it seems like. But either way, the thing is, what irked me about it is, if replay is supposed to get it right, how do you go so wrong then? I know I'm repeating myself. It's baffling, dude. I don't like the way that it takes so long for replay review. It really should be quicker, right? I mean, would you say maybe it should take 30 seconds or less? What is your replay time, Wags? If you had to,
I mean, a minute or two is fine. You want to get it right. I think there are plays that you can get correct in 30 seconds. I also think there are some plays it's going to take a minute or two for it to be corrected. So, I mean, I still think they're quicker than the NFL replays. So, and that the argument about that is that people think baseball is too long. Yes, it's a long game. It's a 2.5, 3 hour game at points. But that's what baseball's always been. We're not going to shorten this thing down to an hour and a half and be able to get everybody with short attention spans a quick baseball game. I mean, you're going to have a few of them. A well-pitched game is going to take maybe an hour 45 to 2 hours max. You're going to have some of those games. But for the most part, baseball is a 2.5 to 3 hour game. Mm-hmm. And using replay isn't extending it that far. Now, if we get into replaying and looking at multiple plays throughout the game that don't matter, that's a different story. But if we're using replay correctly, if we're using it with the Cardinals situation, if we're using it with the situation last night, if we're using it in the proper way, people are going to be happy because the call got right. Mm-hmm. They're going to be happy because the true winner is determined because of that. And there's really no place to complain, because if the umps or whoever's in New York is getting the same feeds that we at home are getting, then you can't really go wrong with it if you make the right call. But that's the whole point that it comes down to. If they're not getting the same feed that we're getting on TV, we can sit there and say, oh, that's the right call or that's the wrong call. But if they're only getting one or two feeds and the feeds that they're getting put things into question, then you can't really sit there and argue against it. If they got two feeds and the only two feeds show an inconclusive safer out, they're going to keep with the call on the field. And the call on the field, bang, bang, was safe. And you could argue that it probably was the right call in the moment. But if you have inconclusive video, you can't reverse the call. Even if you go and sit there and go, more than likely he probably didn't tag, but you can't tell 100%. Now, the feeds that we got on TV pretty much showed he did not touch home plate. But if that's not the feed they got, I can see why the call stood. It's just, like you said, there are some flaws in it, and they have to really look a little bit deeper as to what replay is going to be like in the next couple of years.
Yes, they do. And you know a call's bad when Philadelphia Phillies fans online are saying, yeah, he was out. I mean, even fans are saying that of your team, the beneficiary.
They're saying it because they won the game.
They're saying he was out, though. I mean, usually fans are like, you know what? It doesn't matter. He's called safe. No, they were like, he was out, but we'll take the call.
That's exactly the point. Because they won the game, that's what they're saying.
And even Alec Boehm, he goes, that was called safe, and that's all that matters.
That's really what it comes down to. So, some games that have gone final in Major League Baseball. The Padres, a 6-2 winner over the Pirates. Yu Darvish gets his first win on the season. The Yankees, a 3-1 victory over the Blue Jays. Garrett Cole moves to 2-0, drops his ERA to 1.47, and more importantly, gets the Yankees to 500. The Yankees, we thought they were going to be a pretty good team this year. It really came down to what their pitching rotation was like. Are you a little surprised? I know it's early in the season, only 10 games in. Are you surprised that they're sitting just at 500 right now?
Not really, because you don't have two of your big guns hitting in Judge and Stanton. You don't have those two guys hitting. You're not going to do much. It's hard to expect the Yankees to hit like they were hitting without those guys in the lineup last year. I mean, last year was unbelievable the way those guys just took the reins. And it seems like it's been that way over the last 5 to 6 years, where if those guys aren't hitting or if they're not in the lineup, they're still going to have to fall back on DJ LeMahieu, Gleyber Torres, Gary Sanchez, which, by the way, is having a better year to this point. I know it's better start to this point. I shouldn't say better year because that's way too early to tell. But, it's pitching. We knew their pitching was going to be suspect coming into the season outside of Garrett Cole. And it's shown. But you know what? The Yankees will be there at the end, Wags. I'm not too worried about it. You know what I'm shocked about, though, in that division? How the Boston Red Sox have started. The Boston Red Sox are, I believe what I saw, 6-3 coming into tonight. So that's shocking to me. Yes, you have Alex Corbach. You have a good lineup. I'm telling you right now, Devers, Bogarts, you have a good lineup. But you don't have the pitching. Eduardo Rodriguez, yeah, he's okay. But after that, there's a lot of questions in that rotation. So I'm on one side, I'm surprised with the Yankees only being 500, but another surprise is the Red Sox.
But you said it. You said that the Yankees, it's a surprise that they're 500, but you said that it's not a surprise because Stanton and Judge haven't been hitting. Which one is it?
It's a surprise because, yes, Stanton and Judge aren't hitting, but they're not getting the hitting otherwise. Like I told you before, Wags, this lineup, it seemed like picked up where Judge and Stanton left off when they weren't in the lineup or weren't hitting. It seems like they're not doing that now, at least through the first 10 games. So
are you surprised or not that they're at 500?
I'm surprised.
Okay, so you are surprised that they are at 500.
Yes.
Okay. It just, you had some conflicting messages there, and I just want to make sure I get it right.
Okay.
The Rays beat the Rangers 1-0 tonight. Tyler Glasnow fans 14, as they also moved to 500 on the year. So the Rays and Yankees both moved to 5-5. Currently going on right now, the Marlins and Braves are tied at 3. It's the bottom of the 9th. The Braves have 2 on, no outs right now. Ender Inciarte is at the plate, so we'll keep an eye on that to see if the Braves walk it off, and they might move to 500 at 5-5 as well. The Brewers, a 5-4 team right now, hold a 6-1 lead over the Cubs going into the 9th inning. The Cardinals trail the Nationals 5-2 in the bottom of the 8th. The Nationals 10 hits, the Cardinals just 5. One of those, though, by Matt Carpenter. Let's talk a little bit about Matt Carpenter real quick because he has got a base hit tonight. He also has a walk. Not going to sit there and say he's looking good at the plate, but the base hit was a bunt down the third base line, which is something I've clamored for him to do for the last couple of years, just to get something going. And then he came back from 0-2 and worked a walk in his second at bat. I know we're trying to put Carpenter out there as much as possible because the injuries to Tyler O'Neill and a couple other guys. But you think that Carpenter can get this back, or are we just hoping and praying for the best?
We're hoping and praying for the best at this point. You have to put him out there because of his value this year in terms of he's making $18 million. So you're going to have to give him every chance you can. And he has looked better. He's only has 1 hit on the season, but he's been drawing his walks too. I don't know if you've been seeing, in terms of his struggles, Wags, I don't know if you've been seeing this, but his swing looks off. And what I mean by that is his swing looks slow. Like looks like it's going slower through the zone. Do you see that?
It looks like age has caught up to him. Is that surprising?
It shouldn't be that surprising. That back injury, it's really showing with his bat speed. I really think he generates more with his back if it's healthy. Look at Matt Carpenter in 2013. He was an MVP candidate. How do you go from an MVP candidate to 5-6 years later being what he is now? Is it just a shift?
Because of a back injury?
Is it because of the shift too? Because I feel like the shifts
back injury? You just said it. You said he generates a lot of his power from his back. So if you're seeing a sharp decline and he's had a back injury, that's probably the reason.
But Wags, sometimes he'd hit one through the hole between first and second base. That's being taken away now because of the heavy shift.
But he also was able to deposit the ball to the opposite field at will as well. That's the whole thing. The back injury turned him into a guy that pulled the ball, and that's when they utilized the shift because that's all he was doing. When Matt Carpenter was successful, he would go the opposite way, and he would make it so that you couldn't essentially run the shift on him, as Paul Goldschmidt hit one out to deep right field, but that is hauled in at the wall. So 5-2, 1 out in the bottom of the 8th. It's the back injury. That's the biggest reason for his drop-off, and a back injury is nothing to mess with. And we've seen that. We saw it with Colton Parayko this year with the Blues. He ended up missing something like 21 games this year because of it. So that's the biggest reason. I don't think we're going to see a resurgence from Matt Carpenter this year, but if he gets back to maybe just doing fundamental baseball, dropping the bunt down the third baseline when they put the shift on, being able to get back his batter's eye and work some walks, maybe foul some pitches off, that's going to be enough to get us through to when these guys get back and healthy. He may not last with this team the full year, but if he can get us through the next couple of weeks, I think that's something that we have to look at. So a couple other stats of games going on. Angels a 6-3 lead over the Royals, top 7. Indians and White Sox tied at 3 in the middle of the 7th. The Tigers a 6-0 lead over the Astros in the top of the 8th. And the A's held a 1-0 lead over the Diamondbacks, top 3. Reds 2, Giants 0 in the top of the 4th. And just so you know, still 3-3 in the bottom of the 9th between the Marlins and Braves. Ronald Acuna Jr. is at the plate now, 2 outs, still 2 on. So we're going to come back here on Crunch Time here in just a second. We're going to talk a little bit about the NFL, so make sure you stick around for more Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. And we're back here on Crunch Time on ASTV Productions. Joe Hamilton and Michael Wags Wagon Connect with you. Let's jump into the NFL because a big announcement was made today, and it might change the course of the NFL somewhat because Tom Brady's favorite wide receiver, Julian Edelman, announced his retirement today. And yes, I know that last year he was not Brady's favorite receiver because he was in New England and Brady was down in Tampa. I get it. But Tom Brady's security blanket in New England retired today. It doesn't look like he's really even thinking about being able to play next year. He was cut by New England and then officially announced his retirement. Injuries have taken a toll on him, just the wear and tear as well. This guy had a great career. He had over 620 receptions in his career, 6,800 yards. He's number 2 overall in career postseason yards and touchdowns. He's absolutely a beast in the playoffs, just behind Jerry Rice. When you're second to Jerry Rice, that's pretty damn impressive. Mm-hmm. But here's the big rub for him. Is he an actual NFL Hall of Famer? And I want to get your answer and your reasoning behind it, and then I'm going to throw a couple things out at you and see if you still have the same response. So first off, the question is Julian Edelman an NFL Hall of Famer in your mind?
Based off stats, yes. 6,800 yards. That's nothing to snarl at. Plus, he had those 5 Super Bowls with Tom. Wait, no. How long has he been there? 3 to 5 Super Bowls with Tom Brady. I mean, I know he's had multiple with Brady. You can't leave a guy like that out of the Hall of Fame. What are these things you're going to throw out?
Well, so back in 2018, he was banned 4 games for a positive test for a banned substance. He's also never made a Pro Bowl. And I know you can sit there and scoff at, the Pro Bowl is not really. It's still an accomplishment. It means you're one of the best players at your position that year. 12 years with the New England Patriots, never made a Pro Bowl. So you talk about statistics. Yes, 6,800 yards is nothing to sneeze at. But is that really Hall of Fame worthy numbers?
Yes. No doubt in my mind. Maybe not first ballot Hall of Famer, but he will be a Hall of Famer.
So they're not going to take into account at all the fact that he was banned for a banned substance or never was the best receiver at his position?
I don't think so. I don't think so. The fact that he wasn't a Pro Bowler in his career is astonishing. Like, how do you not select that guy to at least 2 or 3 Pro Bowls? Every year, he was among one of the top wide receivers because Brady. Yeah, people can say because Brady was throwing to him.
Well, it's not one of the top wide receivers. He was never a top wide receiver. He made his hay in the playoffs, yes. But really, he made his hay in the Super Bowl. Yes, he won a Super Bowl MVP. I get all that. He was a great postseason receiver. But I'm going to throw a couple guys out there that have stats that are way past Julian Edelman, and they're not in the Hall of Fame. Okay, these guys have stats better than Julian Edelman. Sterling Sharp, Jordy Nelson, Donald Driver, Greg Jennings. A couple of those are former Packers. And I'm sure you would say that they're in the Hall of Fame, but they have statistics that are better than Julian Edelman. I know not having the rings, that's an argument as well. It really is. I get it. If you go out there and you win all those rings, that means you have a good big-time part of that. But the Hall of Fame is about an entire career, not just the rings on the finger, because you have to have an entire career of success. So that's the only reason I kind of throw that out there is that, he had the suspension, never was the top wide receiver in any year that he played. And there's guys that have better statistics overall that are not in the Hall of Fame as well. I understand the basis of the argument that he won so many Super Bowls as being a reason why he could go in the Hall of Fame, but I don't know if that's the end all be all argument for me.
Wags, weren't you the person that said championships are important for a player to go into the Hall of Fame? Did you or did you not say that? Because
I didn't say it was for them to go into the Hall of Fame. It was who was the better player.
Okay. But I still think, yeah, those guys may have better numbers. Again, 2 of those Packers, man, they were some great receivers. I'm actually shocked they're not in the Hall by now. But Edelman will get there. It may take him 10 years. It may take him a while because he didn't win a Super Bowl didn't make a Pro Bowl appearance, but he will get there. And you know what? It was one time he was caught, okay? He was caught. Well, here's the thing though, Wags. How many players across all sports were caught multiple times and they're about to be in the Hall of Fame? Oh, I don't know. Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, guys like that.
Are they going to be in the Hall of Fame?
They're steadily climbing every year, though.
But are they in?
No, they're not in yet. But if they're steadily climbing, you only need 65% in baseball to make it into the Hall of Fame.
Pretty sure it's 75%.
Okay, excuse me, 75%. Thank you. 75% to get into the Hall of Fame. And they're in the mid to high 60s. You don't think they're going to get in the Hall of Fame at this point if they keep going up like they are?
Well, they only have 10 years, correct?
Yes.
So, I mean, it's possible that they do get in, yes. And I'm not sitting there saying that the positive test is going to be the one thing that keeps him out. I want to point out a couple of things. And I actually, let me get your opinion on this. When you think of Hall of Fame, what does that Hall of Fame mean to you?
Being the best, being one of the best players in all of football, depending on your position.
Right, so it's an individual accomplishment, right?
Yes.
Okay. Individual accomplishment. So what does winning 3 Super Bowl rings as a team do with an individual accomplishment?
Well, Wags, if you are the most important player on that field, most Hall of Famers are really important on the field, you do whatever it takes to win a Super Bowl or you will not get there. You are the MVP of the team. So
are you sitting there saying Julian Edelman is the MVP? Was the MVP of every single Super Bowl team?
No, because you had Tom Brady. I'll pose this to you. I'll pose this to you though. Was Julian Edelman only good because of Tom Brady? Do you think he could have had this kind of career with another good quarterback or another quarterback in general? Yes or no?
No, I don't think so. I think the rapport and the relationship that he built with Tom Brady really kind of helped set his career in motion. I mean, he's a smart player. He's a good player. I'm not sitting here saying Julian Edelman is not a good football player. He has good stats. He was very, very good in his career. He was Tom Brady's safety blanket. If you can sit there and say you're the safety blanket for an MVP quarterback and a multiple Super Bowl winning quarterback, that means you're something special. But when you look at it, was Julian Edelman the reason why the New England Patriots got to the Super Bowl? Yes, he may have been the reason why they won some Super Bowls, but was he the reason why he got them to Super Bowls? You had Tom Brady. You had guys like Randy Moss and Gronkowski and other guys that had those pieces to get there. And once again, it's a team sport. The individual accomplishments are what get you into the Hall of Fame. Adding championships helps. It really, really does. And I get it. And that's going to be a big, big piece of him potentially getting into the Hall of Fame because, yeah, he is the number 2 overall in career postseason yards and touchdowns. Yes, that's because the Patriots are there every year. So he had a lot of opportunities, but he did. He showed up in the postseason. But it's not, the Hall of Fame isn't just about the postseason. It's about everything, regular season and postseason. So I think while he's a good player, I don't know if he's a great enough player to go into the Hall of Fame. If he gets in, I'm not going to complain about it. I really am not, but I just don't think he gets in based on the numbers overall for his career.
Okay. All right. Agree to disagree because I think he's a Hall of Famer. Again, it's going to take a while. He's not a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Oh, no, not a first ballot at all. But I like what in your mind, though, makes you think he's a Hall of Famer?
Because of what he did in those Super Bowls. Because
so it is just about the Super Bowls.
Yeah. You could basically put together a whole highlight reel of what he's done in Super Bowls, and that could be enough to go into the Hall of Fame in my mind. And he did a good job to get his team there. You had Tom Brady as well. I get that. But you still had to catch the ball. Tom Brady could only do so much.
Yeah, he could only do so much. I don't know.
So, I don't know.
I think just basing it on the Super Bowl is not enough in my mind. But hey, I'm not an NFL Hall of Fame voter. So if that's the reason why they put him in, hey, good on them. Other news in the NFL: Gio Bernard, speaking of Tampa Bay, signs with the Buccaneers. Where they're getting this money, I have no idea because they signed everybody else that was on that championship team from last year. But it seems like they were courting him pretty heavily. Bruce Arians and Tom Brady were big parts of bringing Gio Bernard down there. There was also rumors that James White was being courted by them as well before he re-signed in New England. Leonard Fournette and Gio Bernard in the backfield for the Tampa Bay Bucks. Whoa, if they are back to their normal selves. Fournette had a good year last year. Gio struggled in Cincinnati the last few years, obviously, not getting as many opportunities with a guy like Joe Mixon up there. What are you expecting out of Gio Bernard down in the Tampa system?
I'm expecting a good year out of Giovanni Bernard in Tampa, but it's going to be interesting, Wags, how they use them. I was talking to a friend earlier today, and my main question was, what role is Giovanni Bernard going to play here? You have 2 number 1 running backs in your backfield. So what is Gio Bernard going to be a third down back, or is he? What is he, Wags, on this team? Because I see a fit, but I don't see a role there for him.
Change of pace, extra blocker, a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield because Fournette's not a guy that's known for catching the ball out of the backfield. So there's multiple things that you can use him for. And I wouldn't sit there and say he's a number 1 running back at all. I think he is a number 2 running back, and Fournette is a number 1 running back. So I think he fits the role perfectly. I think they're going to be very, very happy with him down there, and we'll see what else becomes of it. Thaddeus Moss, teammate of Joe Burrow down at LSU, was acquired by Cincinnati today as well, reuniting the two. And that might not be the only LSU reunion coming up this year, as they might draft the big-time wide receiver out of LSU as well. So you might get to see LSU North come this year when Joe Burrow returns. That should be a very, very interesting situation up there as well. Just really hoping Joe Burrow gets back and gets healthy. So that's the big thing for them there. All right, we're going to take another break here on Crunch Time. Come back and talk a little soccer and a little bit about the NBA as well. So make sure you join us here just after the break here on Crunch Time on ASTV Productions.
Hey Crunch Time fans, my name is Graham Forsyth. I'm the host of Coffee with Graham and the Prospect Show on ASTV Productions. On Coffee with Graham, I talk to athletes, coaches, and whoever else involved in the amateur sports scene in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. And on the Prospect Show, I talk to the best young hockey prospects from around North America. You can catch all the coverage on ASTV Productions. You can catch Coffee with Graham on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. And for the Prospect Show, that show airs every Friday at 8 p.m. Central Time. Hope to see you there. Have a good.
And as always, make sure you check out the great shows here on ASTV Productions. We can't thank our constituents enough, and our co-hosts as much as well. They do a great job covering sports. Let's talk a little soccer here real quick, Joe. It's not anything huge when it comes to St. Louis soccer, but it is a big issue in sports right now. DC United has hired Lucy Rushton as their GM. She is the first female GM in MLS since 1999. She was previously with Atlanta United as head of technical recruitment and analysis. Now, she's also got experience over in Europe as well. She was at Watford and Reading as well. Helped Reading win the English League Championship in 2011-12. She was part of the Watford FA Cup semi-run in 2015. We're starting to see, thankfully, more women get into roles as far as GM is concerned and ownership and things like that. And honestly, I think we need to see more people of color in those instances as well. I think you really need to start seeing some of that diversity, and we really need to start promoting some of that diversity as well. But this is a big move for DC United. They're changing their entire culture. They fired their longtime coach after last season. They haven't really been a factor in the MLS the last few years. And I know that people are going to look at it and say, oh, they only hired her to make a splash and to get people talking about it. But she has experience. She has a pedigree about her. And I'm really interested to see how that works, mainly because of what's going on here in St. Louis with the female-led ownership group of STL City SC. I really want to see how this works in DC and hope that the group that's in St. Louis does their due diligence. And I'm not sitting there saying they have to go out and hire a woman as the GM or anything like that, but I hope they do more than just sit there and look back and go, okay, let's find the best male person to do this. I hope they look at males, females, people of color, Caucasians. I mean, anybody that has a pedigree and, gravitas around them. I hope that they do that. And I hope that they look at DC United and see what they've done and do the research and really make a good, smart hire when that time comes around.
You're seeing more and more women in sports. And I was watching before the baseball season. I know this is baseball, but it's still women in sports. They had a conversation. And one of the things that popped into my mind the whole time was you need to get more women in sports, but you need to find the right women to put in that position. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mean to sound bad here. Like, there are a lot of smart females out there. A lot of smart females. And the fact is, it's awesome to see women in these roles. Because when I was a kid, you didn't see that. When my dad was a kid, you didn't see that. It's nice, but do you think we're heading more in a society of we're going to have more women coaches and, different things wise? I mean, there is a woman play-by-play announcer for the Orioles in their radio booth. Do you think we see more as the years go on?
I mean, I hope so. I hope once again, though, that we're not looking at it in the basis of, male, female, color of skin, background or anything like that. I hope we really are just looking at the best available person that can get into this role. And it's more about, it's about breaking that glass ceiling and really getting off of our pedestal as white males and really allowing anybody a chance to be anything that they want to be. And that's the biggest thing. I'm very, very happy that this is the direction that some people are going. I know honestly, I know it does piss people off. And I don't understand that. And I really hope that we can, as a society, change that and really just look at the best person available and go from there. So we'll see how it plays out. Really, it's just a big congratulations to Miss Rushton, and hopefully that she sees a lot of success at DC United, and really hopefully they can turn that DC United team around, because when the MLS first came out, DC United was one of those teams. For me, it was the Chicago Fire and DC United. Those are the teams that I watched and enjoyed because, first off, those DC United uniforms are sharp. And they were also one of the better teams in the league as well. So I'm looking forward to kind of a resurgence when it comes to DC United. So good luck there. And we will definitely be keeping an eye on that as St. Louis City SC gets underway here in the next couple of years. Okay, over to the NBA real quick, because I got to talk about it. I've been wanting to get your opinion on this because I know how big of a fan you are. And I know that I am not a fan of them. The Lakers. Lakers are sitting 5th in the West right now. Tonight, they took on the Knicks. The Knicks are 8th in the East. They're in that last playoff spot in the East currently right now. Lakers know LeBron, dealing with an injury. Get it? The Knicks come out and beat them 111-96 tonight. Yes, you can sit there and say that New York is in a bit more of a desperation mode because they're fighting for that last playoff spot, but the Lakers are not too far away from that 8th spot themselves in the West. Are you at all worried that the Lakers could potentially miss out on the playoffs? Because those last couple spots are within 2 games of each other. You got the Spurs trailing the Grizzlies by 1. You've got the Warriors 2 games behind Memphis for that 8th spot. It's getting pretty tight, and the Lakers are starting to slip a little bit. Are you at least a little worried about that?
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried. I mean, not having the best player on the court, and I know you'll say what you will about LeBron James. He is one of the best players in the NBA. Outside of AD and LeBron, I mean, can you really say that they have much there in Los Angeles? I mean, Kyle Kuzma maybe, but outside of those 2 guys, it's a sinking ship. So I could see them totally missing the playoffs. I mean, there's still 20 games at least remaining in the season. So I totally could see them missing the playoffs. Will they? That remains to be seen. LeBron James, that high ankle sprain, I think he's supposed to miss the rest of the season or close to it. So if they can maintain and get LeBron back for the playoffs, there could be another long run for LA. If not, I say that, Wags, because look at every team he's been on. Okay.
Yeah, but let me ask you this, though. You said outside of AD and LeBron, they've got nothing else on that team. LeBron's never won anything when he hasn't had at least 3 guys that can produce alongside him. So I'm not sure I get the connection there. I mean, if it's just LeBron and AD, how are they really going to go on a run if you don't believe that entire team has the wherewithal to help him get to a championship?
Their bench helped them last year. I mean, and the thing is, LeBron helped them a lot, obviously his talent. But then you had that bench who did a marvelous job in the bubble and helped to win a title for the Los Angeles Lakers. They don't have a bench this year. And I say make a run, Wax. I didn't say go and win another championship. Making a run and winning a championship are 2 different things. So my question is, Wags, I know you're probably looking at it now. What is the discrepancy between 5th and 8th in the West right now?
Looking at that, while I'm looking that up, I just want to know from you, who's not on the bench this year that was on the bench last year that made that big of a difference?
It's amazing. I mean, the same guys on the bench, they're not producing like the guys were in the bubble. I guess because they were playing in a bubble and that's all they could really focus on was basketball for the most part. Most part, the players did a good job of not having any distractions. So I don't know, man. I just think that their bench isn't as good as it was last year. I don't know what it is, Wags. If they don't make the playoffs, do you think LeBron gets a coach fired? That's going to be another issue.
That's a good question. And right now they're 5.5 up on the 8th seeded Memphis Grizzlies. So there's still a little bit of some wiggle room there for them as this goes on. Like I said, Spurs are right now. The Spurs are a half game behind the Grizzlies for 8th. The Warriors are still 2 games back, but they are all still in action right now. As far as getting a coach fired, I don't know if that's something that will happen. Obviously, you have to look at it and say, well, LeBron missed a good portion of the season, so it's you lose your quote unquote best player. You can't really necessarily blame that on the coach either. You just don't have your best player. The real question comes down to it: does LeBron possibly retire?
I think LeBron James is the type of guy, though, that would want to go out on top. So I don't think he'd retire after this year. I think he'd give it one more year.
But he went to LA to further his acting career, his portfolio career. He didn't go to LA necessarily to win championships. Yes, he did go there to win a championship, but that wasn't his big main reason. It was to go to LA to get his name in the circles that he needed to get into. So if you're sitting there and saying that he would come back next year and you'd have AD and then a bench that didn't produce this year, and you're betting on them to produce next year, I mean, does he want to go through another down year, another potential year of injury? Or does he sit there and say, hey, you know what? I think this is about my time to step back. I'm going to pursue other options. And that's all she wrote. I mean, I don't think that's going to be what happens, but that has to start entering his mind at some point, doesn't it?
It has to. I mean, he has been in the league forever, it seems like. And, it doesn't seem like he slows down much. He still plays hard, still puts up points. You don't think so?
No, I think he definitely has. I think he definitely slows down. He doesn't play full tilt the entire game.
How many players in the NBA can you say really plays full tilt? That is a superstar or close to it.
I'll be perfectly honest. I don't watch enough NBA to really sit there and say. I think a guy like Russell Westbrook probably does. I think I think Russell Westbrook probably does. I think a guy like what's his face? Luka Doncic down in Dallas can. I think that there are guys that do it, and Weezer is right. LeBron can't get into any circle he wants. It's basically the same team. When he comes back, they're the best team in the league. It's very possible, but he's also coming back from a high ankle sprain, and that's something that's very, very, you got to be very, very cautious with. I mean, we've seen with a guy like Sidney Crosby how long that takes. We've seen it with other guys in other sports that high ankle sprains are nothing to mess with. So I hope he does do his due diligence and really makes himself sure that he's healthy when he comes back. Because if they're in a playoff spot, I do think they could go on a run. I don't think they're a championship level team, but They could go on. I'm not, for all my hatred of LeBron, I do respect and understand that he is a good basketball player. I am not in any way, shape, or form saying that. In my mind, he doesn't fit the mold for me of what I thought of as a prototypical team player. Yes, I grew up with Michael Jordan. I grew up with a different NBA. I know it's a different league now. It's just the way I feel. But I do recognize the fact that he is one of the best players in the NBA. But he is getting older. And yes, they did win last season, but it was a weird season. I'm not trying to take anything away from that, but it is what it is. So, and hey, you know what, Weezer? If you think it's garbage takes, that's all good for you. I think everybody has garbage takes. Everybody has their own opinion. So you just got to get it out there. That's the best thing about sports is you can talk about what you think things are, and there are going to be people that disagree with you. That's just the way it is. And you know what? We all have our own beliefs. And as long as they're not illegal.
Too outlandish?
Well, as long as they're not illegal, they're not racist, sexist, or any form of disrespect in a inhumane way, I think people can have their own opinions. But that's just kind of the way I roll. So we'll see. And once again, if the Lakers go out and win a championship this year because LeBron comes back, all good. Yeah, you're right. I don't watch enough NBA to know. I'm not going to sit there and say I'm not going to sit there and say I'm an expert on the NBA. Once again, that's just kind of my opinions. That's just my opinions. I am not an expert on the NBA.
No,
not
of course.
My NBA was Michael Jordan back in the mid-90s. That's my NBA. I don't watch enough of it now. I do still know that there are some pretty damn good players, and I respect the hell out of them because they're doing something I could never do. You know?
All right. There are two guys, before we get out of here, there are two guys that I want to mention in terms of not really doing, going full bore all the time. Kyrie Irving, okay? And you can't disagree with that. You also have, in a sense, before he went to Brooklyn, James Harden. Before he went to Brooklyn. Since he went to Brooklyn, man, it just seems like he's gone beast mode.
Well, I mean,
would you agree with both of those?
Yeah, and that's the big question mark was he going to be, kind of the selfish player he was down in Houston or what have you, or was he going to change his stripes in a sense? And he's playing with a lot of talented players up there. He's up there with KD and those other guys. So I think, yeah, for James Harden, he's really buying into that system. And I think he realizes that he's at a point now where he's got to change something if he's going to win a championship, because he's been on some very successful teams. He's had a chance to get to a championship and potentially win it. And he hasn't been able to crest that hill. And I think he has realized that, hey, you know what? Now I do maybe have to take a step back. I'll do what I can to help a team win. And you'll see that with a lot of players in the maturity. And for everything that I've said poorly about LeBron, he recognized that too. Okay. And you could sit there and say what you will about super teams and all that stuff, but he realized what he needed to do. He got together with guys that complimented him. He complimented them. They went out and won a championship. He went back to Cleveland. Guess what? He brought in guys that complimented him and he complimented them.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, he realized that. He realized that he couldn't do it all on his own. He did a lot on his own. He dragged a bunch of bad Cavs teams to the finals. But then he realized, hey, I do need some help, and I'm still going to be the best player on the team, but I do need others that are going to help me get to reach my goal. And that's eventually why LeBron has won his championships, is he embraced that and has won because of that. So like I said, for everything I said bad about him, he did realize the dynamics of the sport, and you have to give him credit for that. And Harden did say he preferred not to jack up 33 pointers a game, and that's got to kill his back if he has to do that. And I'm sure the gut he acquired over the last couple months before this season started probably wouldn't allow him to jack up 33 pointers a game as well. So yeah, that is what it is. And I tell you what, I will try and start watching more NBA games because I was impressed and kind of drawn a little bit of the playoffs last year in the bubble. So Weezer, I will do my part to start getting more knowledgeable about the NBA. All right. So make sure you guys definitely come back every night and join us here on Crunch Time Nightly. I will not be with you guys tomorrow because I will be down at Busch Stadium watching the Cardinals hopefully win a game against the Washington Nationals. Joe, I know you'll be back here tomorrow night, probably with Theo. So make sure you come back, check that out. For Joe, for Wags, which is me and not Joe, you guys have a great night, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.